Right, I'm so happy to be back today with a guest that's been on my channel before, and I think most of you will know Jean Nolan from Inspired. And it's so great to have you back. You've had a rough few weeks. How are you doing now?
Well, first of all, Catherine, it's wonderful to be with you and your wonderful audience, and thank you for having me. It's always an honor to talk to you. And yeah, it's been a rough few weeks. I think I was a little careless. I we have a forest right here behind our house that we walk, every day, multiple times with the dogs, and just a refuge, if you will. And I was chasing after our older dog. He's 14, and he was in the bushes and in the ditch, and I didn't notice that I was brushing against poison ivy, which it's a very it's a leaf that has an oil on it that you cannot really see, but it stays on your skin. And I didn't know it before, but I had, apparently I'm severely allergic to poison ivy, so it was a rough few weeks, and I'm recovering pretty well, but it humbles you. It humbles you greatly, like we just talked off camera. And so you appreciate being in good health and good spirits that much more.
I so agree with you. Was your doggy okay?
Oh yeah, yeah, he
Good.
was he was fine. He didn't feel a thing. It was just me who
I've always thought, I know that evolution is a different matter thing, but I've always thought life would be so much easier if we were more furry, wouldn't it? So we wouldn't even have to worry about clothes.
Oh yeah.
I'd like a tail as well. But on to the serious note. Now, I wanted to really talk today about the Great Awakening, what it means to us, and very much lessons learned and traps that either we might have fallen into or we notice other people falling into. And I'd already decided on this subject, and I saw you did a brilliant video on your channel about the fake awakening. And I think this is the reason I wanted to dive a bit deeper into this is the fact that it's so easy for we can see it often other people falling into traps, and of course they'll probably see us falling into traps. Everyone's level of awareness, they're all coming at from slightly different ways. But again, like we've been talking about expanding consciousness and really staying curious about things, the more we talk about these traps and we're honest and open about them and not attached to them, the more we can all move forward together. So I really wanted to start by asking you, what do you think the Great Awakening is? What does it actually mean to you?
Well, there's something that I've been observing for the past 15, 20 years. And I had, for some reason I was never fully programmed. I was exposed to certain programs like everyone else, but there was a level of questioning and curiosity that could not be programmed out of me. And so I would always ask why, what's behind it. And so these were my questions. And I even remember my peers growing up, they were only willing to go so far in their, sort of adolescent rebellion. And I was like, well, but there's more to the story. And that automatically puts you, at least in those times, it puts you out in an outcast group, right? Because you don't fit in and you can't talk about the same things in the same way. But in the last, I want to say 15 years, and we've really been involved in various truth and freedom movements and actively involved in speaking publicly. There's undeniably an energy that is reaching vast numbers of people that helps them to see things from a broader perspective and question and ask, and at the same time reality seems to get more and more strange, crazy, the reality as we perceive it. So it's like there are more and more opportunities to open your eyes and go, this can't be true. This can't be real. There must be more to the story. So I think the awakening is literally a raising of frequency. It's literally a raising of vibration. And, we might be in a period, whether that's from a solar perspective or whether that's from a interdimensional perspective, we might just be in a period that provides the necessary framework to help us do that for those who want to. So, for many people, I think especially 2020, which really, opened up a whole new book, not just a new chapter. So the awakening of 2020 was really um, happening on many levels. First off, for the first time in remembered history, almost everyone in the world, no matter where they were bombarded with the same pieces of information all the time, telling them the same story, using the same vocabulary, using the same fear threats. So there was that. We've never had that before. Even during world wars, especially because the technology wasn't there, we didn't have that. So there was never an event like that before. And then the second aspect of this was pretty much overnight, all the previous rules that we were told were unmovable, immovable, unchangeable, set in stone, all of a sudden didn't apply any longer. So, for the longest time, people were told that's just how it is. This is your tax deadline. You got to fill out the forms. You got to come into office. And now all of a sudden, people were told, no, none of these rules apply any longer. We're changing it.
Mm.
And based on something that people couldn't really see, they couldn't really touch and couldn't really wrap their minds around, a lot of people. So you have these events as they culminate, and something begins to germinate inside of people, and they go, what else? What else was I misinformed about? What else might be a lie? And then there's the spiritual component that I think more and more people have seen through the lies and deceptions of so many aspects of organized religion,
Yeah.
and have, kind of got tired of needing an interpreter and needing someone to be the intermediary between them and divinity or source energy or God or whatever you want to call it. And so all of this used to happen compartmentalized, a little bit here, a little bit there. And now it's happening to people all at once, in many places, and in a way that is almost overwhelming. So they can't close their eyes any longer. So that's that part. That is really happening. And compared to 15 years ago, this is exponential. It's actually amazing. And I couldn't have dreamed that this was going to happen in the way that it is happening. And then at the same time, you have an opposing force that has studied us human for a very, very long time, knows the ins and outs of our behaviors, our needs, our everything, and is constantly manipulating or trying to manipulate. And that's why I did this video called The Fake Awakening, because there's now an entire industry that was created to sort of funnel all the people who are waking up and questioning, to funnel them into certain directions. Within that movement, you have shows and podcasts and speakers and authors who are charismatic, who ask a lot of good questions and talk about really interesting subjects, but only to a certain degree. So beyond that, they're not allowed to talk, and beyond that, they are encouraged to steer people in certain directions. And to me, the real, the clearest sign that someone doesn't or might have ulterior motives is that they ultimately, when it comes to solutions, they steer you in a certain directions. Here's your political candidate, here's your party, here's your organization. Support them and you'll be fine. And that to me is always like, okay, you're not, this is not the solution. The solution is an expansion of consciousness beyond what we were taught, what we perceive. It's literally going beyond all of our perceived limitations and see what we might find, right? That has nothing to do with religion, with science, with politics, and all that. And the solutions truly can't be found in the same systems that created so much of the suffering that we have. And so, I see the brilliance of these deceptions. I mean, these are really well done. These operations are really well done. And and then, if you observe them long enough, you see the signs, and then people get very, very triggered and mad because, once again, these fake awakening movements present to you heroes that are outside of you and savior figures that are outside of you. And you're just supposed to trust those savior figures or support them or vote for them. And then they're going to do what needs to be done. And that is the same old story. That's what we've been doing for thousands of years. So, that's sort of what I've been really observing more clearly lately. And like you say, the traps are sort of everywhere. And when you point them out, people are not always happy with you.
They're so not, honestly. I just need triggered on all my clothes now because everywhere I go, I seem to trigger people, but not my guinea pigs. Now, there's a couple of things that are so beautifully explained. Thank you so much. Technology and its place in this, because I find it really fascinating. Now, I'm really quite deaf. I wear two hearing aids and I still can't hear a lot. But because of that, your other senses take over. So my sense of smell is absolutely incredible. And I read energy, I think, pretty well.
Mhm.
You're a musician. I must say, I heard your latest song, absolutely brilliant. Loved it.
Thank
Really
you.
love it.
Thank
Everybody
you.
go and take a look at that. So you're really used to tuning in and working with those frequencies. And I think a lot of things with the technology, it's almost this sort of constant double-edged sword. Where in some respects, it's almost easier to fool people because you literally can't believe what you see with your own eyes. But in the other way, people are used to seeing now Kirlian photography. They can see people's aura fields. They can understand that we can only see certain frequencies. Even when you take a picture with your camera, often you'll see orbs or other things that you can't see with the naked eye on the screenshot. So I wonder what your view is on this sort of dichotomy of how much technology has helped us all awaken. So for me, like with the Great Awakening, I connected with a second cousin in Australia. And for the first time, we could literally see we were, as you said, being fed the same propaganda all over the world. So in that respect, the technology made them easier for it to roll it out, but it also made it a lot easier for us to see.
Well, this has been such a long-standing question for me, because I'm at heart, I'm really pretty much an anti-technology guy. I've seen just in my lifetime how much additional distraction, how much additional stress, it also causes. That's the other side of it. Yes, we sort of appreciate the comforts and the possibilities that it gives us, but we rarely ask ourselves how much stress is it putting on our system. Um, so the irony is not lost on me, that we use from AI to all this technology every day to reach people. So, I never want to be sort of like a hypocrite here. But the truth is that all of the experiences that I feel are worthwhile sharing and all of the sort of mm, expansions that I've experienced were not facilitated by technology. They actually happened when I stepped away. They
Mm.
actually happened when I found a quiet spot. It happened during introspection meditation. And I think the greatest, aside from this next step that we're now going into collectively, which is transhumanism, right? This is the irreversible merger, and that's the next chapter that they're opening. But just to step back, you know, um, when you have all the information seemingly at your fingertips at all times, and you can sort of intellectualize anything because there's enough videos and enough blogs and enough documentaries. It is almost an imitation of experience, but it's not really experience, right? You just listen to other people share their experiences, and that can be inspiring, and that can be encouraging, that can be informative, but it doesn't replace your own journey. Yet it gives you the impression that you now possess these experiences and that you can that sort of you've expanded your horizon, and that's only true to a very small degree, actually. So I think we have all this tech, and in many ways we lack the maturity. And I think part of it is also that, as a collective, we have not yet decided that just because we can do something doesn't mean that we have to do it or that we even should do it. We're still collectively on the path that whatever we can do, we are doing. Biomedicine and biotechnology is now doing things that 20 years ago we would think of as completely insane and unthinkable. And now they're just doing it. There's not even a discussion about it. So the greatest problem that I have with technology is that there's none of that. There's no maturing, there's no growing, there's no asking ourselves, okay, we can do it, but should we, right? Should we? Is it really helping us? Are we actually evolving or are we devolving? You know, ask a average 16-year-old to give you or to do a very simple calculation, multiplication or division in their heads. They can't. Not even on paper. They need to pull out their phone and they can type it in. So when the power goes out, their ability to calculate anything is gone. And so that's how our brains are. You know, whenever an activity is replaced or technology replaces an activity that was actually a brain activity, after a while that just shuts down because we don't use it and it shuts down. So I think that generally speaking, technology is actually counterproductive to the expansion of consciousness. But that's a general statement. And then there are exceptions, which I think are actually supporting us during this time. Long term, uh, it is my understanding, looking at history and the repetition of cycles, is that highly technological societies always seem to vanish,
Yeah.
and we sort of seem to start over again. So, at what point might we choose a different path, than the technocratic path? And I think right now it's sort of it's midnight and the choice is here. And right now, I think that the majority of people are still too unconscious to even know there is a choice to be made. So I appreciate that question greatly, and actually, it opens a whole can of worms because we're already in this merger of biology and technology and having our perceptions so heavily manipulated through that. So, there's no black or white, but there's certainly a strong tendency towards if I had to choose a fully technologized life or a fully analog life, if you will, I'd choose the latter.
Me too, 100%. And it really occurred to me recently, actually, about how passive so much of our existence has become as humans. And I'm using like the royal we there, obviously this doesn't apply to everyone that's watching. But when you're learning, at least when you're picking up a book, you're physically reading it yourself. You're using your own imagination to interpret what's on the page. And I always used to love it. Back in the good old days when my children were small, I used to run a book club. And it was such fun because, 10 of you would read the same book, and when you came to discuss it, you've all picked out different bits that were meaningful to you, and they were all different, and you all had different interpretations, and you all imagine the main characters as something slightly different. So even reading a book is not a passive way, and the same thing as absorbing, watching a video, listening to a podcast. And as you said, the use it or lose it is so, so key. I mean, there's so much research to that, but the level of inactivity, you know, we grew up probably, I think we're similar age, and the amount of exercise you just did. We always used to walk to the bus stop. You walked everywhere. You didn't get lifts anywhere. We were out, told to disappear off on the holidays and not come back till tea time. Your parents didn't have a clue where you were. What's now actually as a parent, if I can't get hold of one of my children on their phone, I actually start to panic a bit. So it's amazing how much stress it can add to your life. But equally, I think it's down to, again, the individual choice for each of us, which is why my next question is this resilience and this blame culture that I see. It's a massive trigger for me. Put my hand up, it triggers me big time because, my dad, bless him, I was lucky enough to have the most fantastic dad. He died in 2020, and
I'm
he
sorry.
Oh, it's the only downside of the whole COVID fiasco because it was just horrendous. He didn't die of COVID, of course. But he always used to, right from when we were tiny, it was like, life's not fair, get over it. And it was so great because there was no pity party. And people took much more responsibility. If you wanted to be nasty to someone, you literally had to do it to their face and take the consequences of it. If you were going to let someone down, you took the consequence of it. Now, the lack of respect in the way people talk, and I like to say two things can be true. So yes, we can accept that there's been deliberate strategies that are real evil genius, as you said, to put us all on the wrong track. But we also have to accept that some people never fell for them, and therefore we have to accept our own personal responsibility in it. So, what have you learned about yourself with this and about us humans in general? What are some of the main lessons that you could sort of point out to people, and where do you think this personal responsibility falls?
Well, it's the foundation for everything, and we can, we can sort of theorize that we can transfer responsibility to others, but it's not really true. It's just a make believe, and then the more that we transfer responsibility for our lives or whatever to others, the more passive we become, and the more we see ourselves in a victim role, because okay, so that person didn't do what they were supposed to do. That's why I have a bad life. So I'm just going to sit here and wait that somebody will do the right thing. Well, good luck with that. That's that's not going to happen. Um, and a lot of our work and what we try to transfer in terms of perspective is that there is a collective reality that we experience, and that collective reality, it's not too pleasant at this point, right? A lot of people are their quality of life is decreasing on many levels, and conflicts are on the rise, micro and macro. Economy is, it's on a very thin thread, and very soon it's going to get worse. So there's this collective experience, and you can just fully accept that you're a part of that, and go with that flow, and well, then you're just going to be a leaf in the wind. And then there is this, at some point, something happens to almost everyone, and that is usually some, it might not be a tragedy, but it's a very challenging event in their lives. And that's when people make the choice. I'm just simply not willing to accept this kind of shit for my life any longer. I'm not willing to accept waiting, hoping, blaming. And on the flip side of that coin is, so what is the alternative? Well, taking full responsibility. I might not be responsible for what was done to me, but I'm responsible for the healing, because no one's going to do it for me, right? Some people have experienced horrific abuse. Of course, they're not responsible for the abuse, but no one is going to pick them up and heal them for them. They're going to have to make the choice to heal. And that is the responsibility uh, that we all have and should assume. And that's difficult because our culture doesn't teach us that. The program teaches you that you need all these other things around you, and only if these conditions are met can you have a good life. The truth is, we're very, very mighty, powerful co-creators. And even if collective reality goes into a dark direction for a while, there are always people who have incredible lives during that. There are people who thrive. There are people who expand. There are people who have joy. There are people who expand their awareness or create something really amazing, even in dark times or war times or whatever. And it's only because they have assumed full responsibility. And they were probably willing to say, just like you and I were willing to say, oh, well, if I look at this from this perspective and with the new information that I have, well, I was wrong. Well, so what? Okay, we were wrong. Now we learned something new. Now we can expand our horizon and accept that there's more to the story. And if you have a very highly developed ego, then that's almost impossible, because the ego will do anything to stay right versus the expansion and learning. And so the ultimate, and you laid it out beautifully, the ultimate truth is that what we experience in life and how our life unfolds is directly connected to who we are, not just what we think about a lot, not just what we write down as affirmations. There's this surface level spiritual work that has been taken out of context. The truth is that you experience that, or let me phrase it this way: it matters what you do. It matters why you do it, but what matters most is who you are while you're doing it. See, I could give the same program, the same policy to two different people. It's written down and they have to follow those steps. One is extremely negative, dark, low vibrational. One is creative, high vibrational, positive. Even though it's the same policy, that's going to play out completely different. So what matters more than anything is who we are on a vibrational level. And that you can't fake. You
Mm.
can't fake that to life. You can't, you can't pretend you are creative or you are open or you are receptive when you really aren't. And the only way to find out is to take full responsibility and realize the answer was always coming from the person staring back at you from the mirror. That's always been that way. And this is what these times, um, to me as an observer, even in our community of truth speakers, seekers that are public figures, the level of expansion through personal responsibility that I've observed in the last years is absolutely amazing. Um, and to me, this is the answer to all of the questions: is are we willing to take responsibility, and are we willing to accept that we are not just responsible for what we say and what we do, but also for the consequences. That's a tough pill to swallow in the beginning.
Yeah, it is, but it's absolutely crucial, isn't it? So what do you think this reality is? I mean, I've heard you talk about it a bit, but when people talk about we're living in a matrix, what's your understanding? Probably at a top level, otherwise we'd be here for 5 hours. But where do you think we are in this reality? What is it?
You know what I have observed over the last years and what in conversations has come up so often. A lot of people seem to have a memory of what life can be
Mm.
and how amazing, beautiful, um, fulfilling, easy, light life can be. And when you talk to them, and when you ask them questions about their life here in this experience, they have no conscious memory of such an experience. There's nothing to compare it to in their earthly lives. Yet they have this image of what life can be. And as a matter of fact, their striving is in that direction, right? So I have asked myself, where does this memory come from? What do we know on a deeper level that is possible even though we have no experience of it while we are here, because life here isn't easy. I mean, you can you can create a beautiful life, but that doesn't mean that everything's always going to be easy or void of challenges. There's still density, there's still weight, there's still what we experience as gravity. There's this insane buffer between our intentions and creative thoughts, and when it actually comes to play, that's oftentimes 10 years in the future. So there's all these things that are challenging to the human spirit. But why are they challenging? If this were our natural playing field, why is it challenging? Why is there so much suffering? And so, you know, I've studied this from many angles, and to the best of my intuitive knowing and studying, and I can't say this is the truth, this is just where I stand, is that we are in a heavily manipulated perceptual reality. And I think there's a, a technology beyond our current imagination that's at play. And the only way out that I have found is to expand consciousness. So I have literally had experiences during meditations that were much more real than anything that I experience while I'm here. So I think that this quest that many people have, this memory, and B, that more and more questioning about the very fabric of our reality is coming out. I think those are two indicators that show us that there's more to know about it. Um, I would I would say maybe the word simulation doesn't quite explain it. Maybe construct doesn't, but I don't think this was the primary playing field, if you will, a primary reality that we were actually meant to live in. I do think that we were sort of seduced and trapped into an extremely limited version of it that lends itself almost more to pain and suffering than it does to joy and beauty and that's where I currently stand. Not to go too much into technological like phrases, but this is sort of where I am. And the key point is I think we can actually break it up. I think we can actually transcend it or break it up, and it only happens through consciousness. This is the good news. I don't think we need a counter technology. I don't think we need to wage war against it. I think that if we expand to the levels that we are actually capable of, that this can't reach us anymore.
Yeah, a bit like, have you read the 12th Agreement by James Redfield?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's worth reading. It's really, really worth reading, actually. But it's almost like you just, when your vibration lifts, you just automatically go into a different reality. I'm going a little bit off course. I'll get back on it, but I can't leave this trail of thought without asking about, where do you think animals fit into it? And I'll just put a little preface. So I've got loads of different animals, and they're just amazing. You know, if I was with Matt from Cultivate Elevate yesterday, and we were looking at the biggest lies we've been told, and I thought, literally, do you know, the only thing I can think in my life that's real is nature and animals. But then my cats, I've got 5 different cats at the moment, incredible they all are, and they literally seem to be living across different realities, you know, so different sets.
Hmm.
So where do you think animals fit into this picture and the reality construct?
Well, it's a good question. Like you say, I've observed this in our cats as well. So cats seem to be have a much easier time or less programmed than we are in terms of dimension. So I think they see things that we don't see at all times.
Mm.
Um, Horses have, incredible senses that, you know, so often if you spend enough time with them and if you're quiet, I mean, there's so much you can pick up. So those are things I'm conflicted about as well. See, I'm also wondering, why is it that we feel so much better in nature, most of us, anyways, when we're away from artificial structures and cities and noise. Um, and I think the 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 closest I've come to it is that both of these realities or multiple realities actually exist in the same space. So I think there's a frequency difference, and that's where the programming comes in. And humans who, if you spend a lot of time actually meditating and practicing, then you can sense aura or even see aura, right? You can see the colors. And I think that is just tapping into this other dimension that we usually don't see. So, I think certain animals seem to not have that problem to begin with. Others, I don't know. But yeah, I think your observation is absolutely correct that animals do transurf much more, because ultimately what we perceive as time and space, right? That's just our 3D interpretation. And I don't know if you've ever done something like a quantum leap process. And it's funny because I thought about it last night. I used to do and guide people through a quantum leap process. And the gist of a quantum leap process is that you are you're in one state of being now. Your life is the way it is, and you actually desire to have a better life and to have certain talents or skills or live a different profession, do different things. And the idea is that in our multidimensional reality, that version of you already exists. So in a quantum leap, you actually connect with that version and merge with that version. There's a process to go through. And the interesting thing is that when people do that and they really do the process, that sometimes they wake up the next day and they can do something that they couldn't do before. They sit down at the piano, and I'm not saying they're playing Bach, but they're, it's all making much more sense. So I think more than anything, we're talking about frequency. We're talking about different levels, and the closer we come, the more it all begins to merge. And I think certain animals don't have to overcome that. They're already in that in between space.
Yeah, I so agree. It's something I really want to explore more. So, what do you think are some of the main traps that people have fallen into? I mean, should we start with the sort of false gurus and false idols?
Sure. Um, in this fake awakening show that we did a couple days ago, one that, oh my God, triggered people was Sadhguru,
Oh, I know. It always does, doesn't it? Yeah.
and and what I showed is most people that watch our shows are very critical of the World Economic Forum, are very critical of Klaus Schwab, and are very critical of this global depopulation, AI agenda, and all of that. And then when you show them footage of Sadhguru speaking at the World Economic Forum, laughing about how he wants to depopulate the world, and that it it shatters a perception in a minute, right? Because many people have been watching, maybe even met him in person. And yes, there's plenty of wisdom that he shared that is actually true and applicable. So, but the whole idea of a false guru is not that they are all out liars, it's that they give you a lot of what resonates. But when it comes to those quintessential solutions, they funnel you into a deceptive direction. That's the whole premise of it. You want to catch the attention of people and keep them watching and keep them hypnotized. So ultimately you can lead them there. And, another false prophet, my goodness, Elon Musk. I
Yeah.
mean, the level of Musk worship is despicable. And nobody's asking some of these very common questions. I remember when he bought Twitter, I said, well, why did they sell it to him? And I know David Icke's been asking that question a
Well,
lot, and I had the same. Why the hell?
why would they? And he's the guy that's developing Neuralink. I mean,
He's
oh,
also the guy who has hundreds of billions worth of government contracts.
yeah.
So
It's,
forgive me, but what all out rebel has hundreds of billions of government contracts? I mean, that just doesn't compute, does it?
yeah. And I think going back to Sagaru, I think, that I love the sort of saying that the man may have fallen, but the message is pure. And this is where the evil genius comes in. I mean, some people, I would think, in my understanding, they started off quite pure and they got corrupted along the way. And we've seen that happens to a lot of people. And other people might not even know how corrupted they are. If they've got a very strong ego, they might not even realize that. I see it it's such a human trait that people want to belong and they want to
Mhm.
fill in with the in crowd. And then suddenly take a look at the in crowd you're in with. I mean, I've done it myself, and you're just like, how did I get here? It can be a subtle, slow process. I mean, I'm sure we can all think of people that we've been friends with that now we're thinking, wow, what, took me a while to see through that one.
100%. This is nobody. I think nobody's really immune.
Mm,
Um, what is so what is so insidious about the false prophets, and the way that, like you said, I think most of them actually do not realize
yeah,
that the role that they're playing. And here's the thing too. If you are, and it's the same in every field, like, I've been an artist and songwriter most of my life. When you get a record deal, or when you uh, sign some sort of significant contract or do a tour, now all of a sudden you enter an entire new field,
yeah.
new people, new schedules, new habits, new everything. You are in an artificial information field,
Mm,
because there's, and when these podcasts were all, sort of bought up by networks or brought into bigger networks, now these researchers have researchers that research for them. They have people that prepare everything for them and put it in front of them. So it's much easier to steer than you would think, right? You steer subjects, you steer how far they go, and then there's all the success and all the money that
mm,
that they generate. So they go, this is working, people are loving it, we're doing a good thing. And these are the best, right? The politicians that believe in their bullshit are the best ones. Those are the best, the ones that know how corrupt they are. It's often problematic. And I think that is what, and I'm always hesitant to name names, but I'll tell you, there's just people that I don't have a good feeling about is Russell Brand. People that I don't have a feeling about is Sadhguru, and he's not really in the same movement. And then there's the Daily Wire crew, the Jordan Petersons. Unfortunately, and people scold me for that all the time because, oh, Jordan Peterson woke me up. Good, cool. So he said something or you heard something that helped you. Well, take the win, but
Yeah.
don't lower your standards now. And if we were to apply the same standards to these people in our research as we do to the Klaus Schwabs and the Bill Gateses and everyone else, we would actually find that they're not really honest. They're not truthful.
Yeah.
And the truth is, if you ask me, I don't want people to follow anyone. I don't want people to follow me. I don't want people to put me on a pedestal and say, well, this inspired guy, he's got the answers. No, no, you got to find them for yourself. Of course, we can talk about things, we can point to certain things, but it's you. It's always been you, and you don't need anyone to tell you what to do, who to vote for, what to think, what religion. No, you have this. You have this inner compass, this intuition, this spirit that knows exactly what's right for you, and that is the key message in this, really. But it causes, for us, every time we bring that up, 95% of the time, we get a lot of shit. We lose a lot of subscribers. But hey, that's how it is. I can't help it.
Yeah, completely. I so agree. And it's such an interesting one. And I think when you meet someone in person, this is a problem because so many of these relationships are just behind a computer screen. And when you meet someone in person, you can normally tell straight away. Like I recently met Bruce Lipton when he was over in London. And oh my God, just amazing, amazing. So genuine, real eye to eye connection. And then I met a couple of years ago at a festival, Russell Brand, and it was like, oh, no, completely the opposite. So I think, again, when we can actually have that human to human contact, then you can really start tuning into all your senses and what they're telling you. So now the next one I wanted to ask you about, which I think is quite hysterical, is a bit of the sort of echo chambers group think and the sort of name calling, like the controlled opposition. And we touched on it a bit earlier, but one of the things, if you don't follow that particular movement and agree, you're a fake patriot sort of type of thing. This
Yeah.
struck me that it's hysterical, really, because on one respect, the sort of truth movement, I don't know, whatever we want to call it, they sort of ridiculed and mock people that believe in the vaccines, but then they preach about med beds. So one people want the vaccines to say that save them, and then the other group who are laughing at that group just all are sitting there waiting for the med beds to come and save them. And of course, there's lots of us in between. But what's your view on the trap of this, name calling? For me, it's a very lazy way of dealing with things.
To me, these are all the classic divide and conquer tactics, right? So I actually recently, for a show, I did research on what are the top 5 values for people all over the world. Okay, so
Oh,
I
interesting.
looked up the Iranians, I looked up the Chinese, I looked up the Japanese, I looked up the Venezuelans and the Germans, and so from all continents, cultures, religions, there's about a 70 to 80% overlap in our values of what we as humans want, maybe even more, probably. So basically, what that told me is that on the most fundamental levels, we're absolutely aligned with what we all desire. Everybody wants health and family and prosperity to a certain level. So this is sort of this is the true foundation. What we have been exposed to is a systematic division, divide, conquer. So people are divided up in little boxes, and their life is divided up in little boxes. What sports teams do you root for? What political parties? What religion? Pepsi or Coke? I mean, all these little things, and they create these boxes, like you said earlier, that people gather in, and these they become an echo chamber. And then for some reason, the logical conclusion seems to be, if you don't believe exactly what I do, then you must be completely wrong and evil.
Yes.
And this is happening in all fields, but it's an orchestrated thing. It's carefully orchestrated because here's the thing. all of this nonsense, all of this control system would cease to exist if a significant number of people could overcome those differences and realize we are much more alike than we're different. And we have a common opponent. That's true. There is a common opponent. And that opponent is a tiny, tiny group of entities compared to us. And they know about our psychology, and they know about our need to belong. They know that we're social beings. So they create a billion little tribes. And then they convince each tribe that whoever doesn't belong to your tribe is wrong and bad and evil. Boom. And that's why we have split movements everywhere. That's why you have, the cues, the people that are, that's the box, that's the truth. There's nothing left or right. Then there are the woke, that's a box. There's nothing else. And then there are people who tend not to spend a lot of time in boxes, maybe like you and I, and you go, why don't we just talk for a while? Why don't you drop your label? Why don't we just realize that there's something much bigger going on here? And if you and I put our heads together and then we bring that person and that person in, we might actually come up with some really cool solutions. And the insanity of the movements that you just touched on, like you said, those who believe in the Beetlejuice, those who don't, and both movements root for a guy who calls himself the father of the Beetlejuice, and yet they oppose the Beetlejuice, but they love the guy who praises himself over it. And I go, well, if you can't see the insanity in that, I'm sorry, but it doesn't make any sense. And so back to square one, close your eyes, go within, realize you're not this body, you're not this mind, you're not this sports fan. These are all just tiny little expressions of your human life. You're much more than that. And from that perspective, all these conflicts kind of go away, and you don't engage in them any longer. And that's thankfully what I have seen more and more people do, is sort of exit and go, yeah, I am a patriot, but that doesn't mean I have to belong to this group. I like that approach.
I love that. I think the black and white thinking, it's such a divide and conquer thing. It's like you've either got to be all in this and this, and you're just completely missing all the millions of other options that we haven't even looked at. It's hysterical. So, um, the last one, we're running a bit out of time, but the overwhelm and burnout. It's a big thing for people and keeps them very distracted and unable to focus. And we just touched on, I think, before we started recording, about when you're not feeling vital in yourself, if you're ill or had an accident or stressing about a loved one, it's really hard to keep that energy level, high, and then you're more susceptible. So what have you learned about overwhelm and burnout? I mean, on a personal level, has this affected you? What words of wisdom have
Heck
you got?
yeah. Heck yeah. But I think it is, we can't look at it as something isolated. Number one is, you and I talked about this before. Um, there is maybe a completely false expectation of what high energy and being energetic all the time is. And I think we're underestimating the influences that we're under on a daily basis, and that have shifted and changed and increased dramatically over the last few years. So if you were chipper and happy and energetic, 15 years ago, and you had enough energy to go through the day, um, life and the conditions are nothing like they were 15 years ago. We have an electromagnetic spectrum that has increased incredibly, and these avatars here are having a hard time keeping up and adapting, right? So that is a constant. If you live even remotely to an close to an urban area, you have towers, you have Wi-Fi fields everywhere. Everything is pinging and connecting. That in and of itself is incredibly draining.
Oh,
And
I
if we don't take that into account, we criticize ourselves. Why
mm.
am I tired again? I'm taking care of myself. I'm drinking clean water. I'm taking the supplements. I'm resting, and still I'm tired. And so I had to come to that conclusion. I'm like in the old paradigm, I used to call myself a workaholic, but I just love what we do. And we came here with a mission, so we go hard. But I really had to come to grips with, okay, if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't rest, if you don't tune in more, you have nothing to give and you are depleted. But um, I think it's a testament, actually, a testament to the human spirit that we are still kicking as good as we are and that we're still doing as good as we are despite all of the negative influences. So this is real. Most people that I know are struggling with the energies right now. And there are multiple reasons. On the one hand, the way that we measure Earth is going up and up and up and up. I think we have sometimes a hard time keeping up. That causes us to be more tired. And then there's sort of this in our movement, there's sort of this countdown, you know? It's like we're running out of time. We have to get this out to the people. We have to get, there's a little bit of a pressure too. And for me, I have just noticed that if I don't listen, if I don't tune in, if I don't give myself enough space for self-care, everything else doesn't work any longer. So the number one thing, the number one thing is guilt and shame.
Mm.
If if you feel guilty about not being hyper productive all the time, if you are ashamed that you're tired, um, and that you need rest, then that drains you even more. So let yourself off the hook. Give yourself some really good rest time. Sometimes just take a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, read a good book, sit down, relax, and realize what is really going on around you. And then there's, sort of mitigating factors, getting away from the smog, going into nature, making sure that you are properly, hydrated, that you have all the nutrients, and spend time with people you love, hug, uh, have positive, uplifting conversations. It's going to get more challenging for a while. I mean, I'm certain of that. So we're going to have to become even more resilient and more conscious. This is real. Eventually we'll get through this. I think it will be much, much better. But I think for the remainder of the decade, we're going to have some serious, serious challenges. And if we don't take good care of ourselves, there's no one there to get help people get through this. So that's where I am. And I need to say this to myself as much as I say this to others, by the way. I need to hear myself say this. And sometimes I need to hear it from somebody, a friend, or, my wife tells me, of course. And I just need to go, you're right. I need to rest. I need to take care of myself.
It's such good words, and I'm laughing not at you. I'm laughing at me because my friends put "hurry up" on my gravestone because, and I always get everyone taking the mickey out of me because I'm always saying everything's so exciting and this. And actually, what I've done now, I've been working more from home. I see how much of the day, even my young cats, dogs, horses rest, and they're so good at resting. And then you'd watch any animal when they wake up, they do their pose, they yawn, they stretch it out, they shake it out. And I've been amazed, even my, I still call them puppies, they're 7 or 8 now, but that's young for my animals. They're very good at resting. They have fun, they have bursts of energy, and they're very good at taking themselves off to regenerate and rest. So I think, again, we can learn a lot from them.
Couldn't agree more.
Love this conversation so much. Thank you so, so much. It's fantastic. I could literally talk to you all night. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, where can people find your music? Obviously, I'll link your channel below, but where's the best place for them to find your music?
Well, the easiest is Jean, that's Jean, the French version, jeannolan.com. And there, from there you can find all the links and all the clicks. It's everywhere: Spotify, Apple Music. If you do want to support the artist over the big tech platforms, then please go to Bandcamp, and the link's also on my website. And of course, the Inspired channel. We are on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Locals, we're on X. And yeah, we'd love to invite people over, see if this is for you. If you want to join the conversation, I love hearing from people. Leave a comment, and please let me know where you came from. The Catherine, that you saw me on Catherine's channel. And yeah, Catherine, I want to thank you for your work, for what you do, for how you are assisting, all of us during these times. It's greatly appreciated. And it was my honor to be with you today.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much for everyone listening. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Take care, everyone. So I really hope you're enjoying this podcast as much as I am. And I just wanted to take a little break to tell you about the amazing products by the sponsor of this podcast, the biophotonic EMF and bioresonance devices, which help us take our healing to the next frequency. So let me start with the bioresonance devices. Biophotonic have two amazing little devices, the little BioNexus and the biophotonic, and both of these are really the next generation in bioresonance devices. So let's start with the little BioNexus. This amazing little device literally sits in the palm of your hand, and it's now my go-to support, especially when doing my daily manifestations and affirmation practices. But it will balance out my frequency to work on whatever needs balancing for me right here, right now. So what are some of the benefits of this little BioNexus? Improved energy, decreased inflammation, supports our immune system, psychological homeostasis. But also it supports the integrity of the cells, improves our memory, cognitive, emotional and psychological states, and speeds up recovery. And just like we've been talking about today, it really improves human consciousness support. Now, the other bioresonance device, the biophotonic, absolutely amazing little device, comes preloaded with a range of therapies. And this will clear parasites, giving active protection. You can wear it with you. It comes in a little pouch that you can wear around your neck, and it detoxifies heavy metals, clears EMF radiation out of cells, cleanses bacteria and viruses, detoxes chemicals and toxins, DNA repair, pain repair, you name it. And it's even got calming meditation practices that, complexes that you can run to strengthen the aura field, and frequency packs can also be added to your water. I think we all know the detrimental effects now of mobile, Bluetooth and EMF radiation. They've been extensively studied and I've done loads of videos on it. So minimizing our exposure is crucial. So what's really key is both the biophotonic and the BioNexus. They're standalone, lovely little devices that don't require Bluetooth connection, a Wi-Fi connection. You don't need to buy any frequency packages. There's no subscription fee, and you don't need a mobile phone to control them. There's no electrodes. They're completely wireless, ready to use straight from the box. So you can get these and a full range of EMF protection devices that you can use for yourself and your pets. Don't forget to use coupon code CE20 to get 20% off all products, including EMF protection.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. And above all, stay curious and stay free.